Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us this month for Side by Side Digital. I'm your host, Rebecca Shively. We've got a great program lined up for you today. This month, we're talking about the difference between working on your business versus working in your business. Sometimes it's easy to get bogged down in the day-to-day running of your operation, and we forget to make time for strategic thinking. We're joined today by Bob Campbell, Senior Vice President Business Development at Farm Credit Services of America and Frontier Farm Credit. Bob has a wealth of knowledge when it comes to this topic, and we're really excited to have him join us today. Bob, thanks so much for being with us today. I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, Rebecca, and welcome everybody. I'm excited to be able to spend some time with you. And what I want to do today is really talk about strategic mindsets that we think are important. And I kind of frame it up as working on the business versus working in the business. What I'd like to do is make this conversational to the extent we can. So please use chat to forward any questions that you might have or insights, as well as any clarification on maybe what I'm talking about. And my intent today is to offer ideas and offer ways of thinking more than telling you how to run your business. You know how to run your business, and I'm sure you're very successful at it. I'm just going to share some observations of what we've come across over the years as we work with producers. What I'm going to talk about today is really focused on what I call the big picture. We'll spend some time talking about the difference between strategic and tactical thinking. I'm going to spend quite a bit of time talking about alignment. And when I talk about that, I mean alignment within the ownership group of your operation and your key stakeholders and why that's important, and what I call role clarity. And again, why that's important to all of the work that we want to do while we're working on the business versus in the business. So what do I mean when I talk about working on the business versus in the business? What's the difference? And think about working on the business as the strategic work of looking at your operation. So it's really stepping back and looking at the business that you're running and how you're performing. And it starts with credo documents like your mission and vision statement. It's about business planning and goal setting. It's about succession planning and estate planning if you have an operation that you want to have succeed you in as the manager of the operation. If you have employees, it's employee acquisition strategies or retention strategies. And then it's doing work like you're doing today around education, around development, around learning new ideas. Perhaps you have a mentor that you like to sit down with. All of that helps you expand your thinking. That's what helps you work on the business versus the day-to-day work of the business. When I talk about in the business, it's also what I think of as tactical work. It's the day-to-day activities you do that runs your business. It's production. It's keeping track of the books and paying your bills and collecting receivables. It's executing your marketing plan. It's, executing your business plan if you have one. And it's hiring people or it's letting people go. It's the day-to-day work of your business. And that's where we spend most of our time, whether you're an ag operator or you're in my role or you're in any other business in downtown. Working in the business probably consumes most of our time. So what I want to do is step back and really focus on the big picture, the strategic work of working on the business, because I think that's an area that tends to get the shortest amount of time share of your calendar. And so one thing that we encourage people to do is when you're going to start working strategically, sometimes it's really good to pick your location. Maybe go off site so you're not distracted. You don't have people walking in on you. The equipment dealer doesn't pull in the driveway, or the agronomist doesn't pull in, or your hired hands don't walk in and they just interrupt your mind flow and what you're thinking about. So think about how you want to set the environment up as you want to work on the strategy of your business. And you want to start thinking about where are we at today in our business and where are we going? How will we get there? Or do we have the right people doing the right things? What should we be doing more of that we're really good at? Maybe there's some things that we're not so good at that we should consider offloading to someone else, or maybe stop doing. But it really gets you away from the have to get done, the task list of the business of today. It all starts with the mission and vision. of your operation. And mission really just tells you, why does your business exist? The vision really sets up the stage of where do you want your business to be in the long term. And when I'm thinking long term, look out 10 years or more and really think out, where do we want our business to be? For an example, let's say you're just starting out and you've got a nice sized operation, but you're also needing to work off farm to pull in some money for cash flow or benefits or whatever. And your vision is to be a full-time operation where you can commit all of your time and energy into the business of producing whatever it is you produce. And your vision is to be full-time. So that's where you want to be. And that's what you're going to start lining up all of the work that you do today to help you move towards that vision. Or maybe it's to be a multi-generational operation. Maybe your second generation, your goal and vision is to keep the operation going beyond your management tenure there, and that you want to set the business up for others who will follow you. So the vision is a multi-year operation or multi-generational operation. But why it's important is with the vision is that sets the stage for the strategic decisions that you're going to need to make in order to reach your vision. What's important about the vision too is that you identify what it is and you write it down. And more importantly, you share it with the other members of your ownership team, or hopefully your ownership team puts it together together, and your key stakeholders. And that's important because we get into what I consider alignment. If all of your partners and your key stakeholders are aligned to your mission and vision, that enables you to make strategic decisions, because strategy is about choices. And so if you're all going down the same road and you understand the same outcome that you're trying to get to, that is going to help you be more aligned. It's going to create less friction within your leadership team, and less friction creates more trust. The more trust you have, the easier it is to make big decisions, because again, you're all in for the same idea, all in for the same outcome. And if you're able to do that, you just perform better as a management team. Let me give you an example of a real life example of when I came across a producer who had a vision, but there was no alignment. And they're a multi-generational operation. It's grown under his tenure as the leader. He's getting up there in age, and he wants to set it up so that their operation continues to be multi-generational. They have one of the children on the farm that helps him every day. And they have two children who are not involved in the farm at all, but have some expectation to what their stake in the operation is, maybe long-term. And so in order to make the operation continue down that path of multi-generational, they need to create a transition plan, and they need to create an estate plan. So, and this is where the misalignment starts to occur, because the gentleman and his wife cannot agree on the difference between fair and equitable. What's fair for the three children versus what's equitable for the child that is on the farm doing the work, investing their time and energy, versus the children who aren't on the farm but have a reasonable expectation of inheritance, for lack of better words. So when they start talking about it, the husband and wife, they can't agree on that, so they stop talking about it. And what's happened over the years is nothing has been done yet. And so his vision, or the vision of a multi-generational operation, is there, but if they don't do some work around estate planning, they have no guarantee that operation is going to have the viability it needs to have to continue forward when they're not around. So the next thing they need to continue to work on to create alignment and come to conclusion as to the fair and equitable example, so that they can move forward and make sure everybody knows kind of what's going on. And so if you understand your vision, and if you write it down and share it with your owners, your partners, and your key stakeholders who can help you get there, it will make your progress a lot easier. Hopefully that makes sense. Rebecca, let's do a quick poll. How many of you have a vision statement that is written down and socialized? Or let me put it this way, do you have a vision statement that's written down and socialized? Simple yes or no, just to get a feel for what everybody's thinking and to see if this spurs on any questions. So if you just take a second and respond to the poll, we'll see what the audience says. 79, so 80-20. And you know what? That is not uncommon. And so it's not uncommon. It's not common to find this in a lot of aspects of business, let alone agriculture. As I've talked to business owners outside of the agricultural sector, very common that this isn't written down or it's not shared or they don't have it quite figured out yet. I would encourage you to spend some time thinking about it. And there's a ton of resources online that you can read about in terms of creating a vision, creating your mission. But I encourage you to do it. Before I move on, are there any questions that you have about where to start in terms of the strategic work of your business?
Hey, Bob, I'm not seeing any questions in there yet, but just a reminder
Okay.
to the audience, feel free to submit those. We'll have some time at the end as well. So keep
Yes.
thinking about it.
Okay, that'd be great. So we'll go ahead and keep moving. But at any time, again, if something comes up and you have a question, please ask the question because I'm sure everybody else is thinking very similarly. We do some work with Dr. David Cole in various venues through the years, and he has some tools that we like to use, and one of them that he firmly believes in is having a business plan. And if you've ever heard him speak, he talks about the business plan that he has for his agricultural business. And so when he talks about that, he outlines the elements of what he thinks a good business plan should have. And it's laid out here in this chart. It's another way to really sit back and figure out where are we going? How are we sitting in terms of our financial position? How's our risk management plan looking? Do we have financial plan scenarios? So what happens if? What happens if we're able to convert leased ground to owned ground? Or what happens if cattle prices increase 25% or corn drops $1 a bushel? So the financial plan scenarios, obviously the transition plans in there, you can see that list. But his argument is, if you probably know a lot of these already and they're in your head, a good thing that a business plan does is it gets it written down again so that you have the ability to share it, to look at it, observe it, modify it when the time is needed, similar to what I was talking about with your mission and vision. So this is a blueprint that he shares, and we have tools like that available for you if that's of any interest. You'll notice in that blueprint he talked about a SWOT analysis, and that's really an analysis of your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. This really is at the forefront, in my opinion, of thinking strategically about your business, because it involves two avenues of thought. One is internal. So when you step back and think about your operation, what are the strengths of your operation? What do you do really well? Are you good production managers? Are you good financial managers? Do you do really good at marketing? Do you have a good leadership and management team that really builds on each other? What are the strengths that you can use then that carries you forward as you pursue your vision? Likewise, what are your weaknesses? And I define weakness really as simply as anything that gets in the way of success. I also believe that spending time and money to make a weakness a strength can be a challenge when you can probably take those resources and make your strength stronger. But can you take a weakness and at least get it to neutral so it's not standing in the way of success? And so a weakness internally could be poor communication between the owners. It could be lack of, for that operation, I threw an example out a minute ago, a lack of an estate plan. That's a weakness that maybe they should be working on. Could be you identify that we're really good at production, we're really good at financial management, we're kind of weak in marketing. So what do we do around that? Once you figure that out, you look outside of your business to the external, and you look at opportunities that are out there for you that maybe you can capitalize? Are you leasing ground from a landlord who is thinking about selling the ground and you have the opportunity maybe to purchase it? Or a neighbor who has a bunch of pasture that they're willing to lease out that would allow you to expand your livestock herd? Maybe there's an opportunity for another channel of income streams to come into the operation. And then conversely, you look at threats. Again, these are external threats, so you don't control them, but you can look out there to see, are there any threats that we should be aware of that we should plan around? For example, do you have a key input supplier that is really important to your business and they're subject to a merger and you could lose the local location, or government regulation or tax laws, any of those things that you have no control over, but you have the ability to manage around if you just put some forethought into it. So the intent then is to roll this together as part of your business planning process to really highlight your strengths, identify those 1 or 2 weaknesses that in the next year or two you'd like to work on to neutralize them, and then think about opportunities that you can capitalize on, and then be aware of any threats that could alter the way you run your business. So a SWOT analysis is really a really key tool as you think about the strategic thinking that you need to have in your business. And the other tools that and thing that Dr. Cole in particular talks about, and I agree with, is what are your long-term goals and what are your short-term goals? And when you think of short-term goals, it's something within, the next 12 months. Long-term goals are anything longer than that. So your short-term goal, if we go back to your SWOT analysis, you might build a short-term goal out of taking a weakness and neutralizing it. And a long-term goal might be something you see as an opportunity that you want to work towards. But all of those are in line with where you want your business to be long-term. They align with your vision, so that if you start setting goals that go counter to your vision, you know that you're not aligned, and you can step back and say, okay, are the goals wrong, or is our vision not quite where we want it to be? But if your vision's solid, you should be able to reach back into your goal setting process and create the goals that help you move forward towards your vision. So that kind of wraps up. I'm going to move into some roles that I mentioned we're going to talk about, but I wanted to really stop for a minute and again offer the opportunity for any questions that might come up or that you have around what we've covered so far: mission, vision, business planning, the concept of a SWOT analysis, goal setting, alignment with where you want your business to be. Any questions or observations around that?
Yeah, Bob, it looks like we had 2 questions come in and they're kind of related, so I'll try and combine them. I really like how this one is phrased. It says, I need my dad to have a vision. I'm not sure how it helps if I create one and he doesn't get it or agree. Any suggestions? And the second question is similar. How do you get everyone on the same page, a direction where to go?
Yep. So that's the $60,000 question right there. Is it, depending on where you're at in the hierarchy of the family businesses are great and they can be tough. I would encourage you to open the dialogue with, in this case, your parents, and just talk about what you're thinking about and why you think this is important, and to be prepared for some pushback, be prepared for some objections. Maybe they aren't ready to talk about it, but cast your concerns and why you think it's important for you and your family to be on the same page. An example, and here's an example I had. It's been 3 or 4 years ago. I was at our side-by-side conference that we have, and I was talking to a young husband and wife, and they were on his family's operation. The family had agreed that, yeah, come back and help us, and we'll move you into the operation, we'll move you into management, and we'll start this transition. And it had been 5 or 6 years, no progress had been made yet. The young couple was trying to have that conversation. The parents weren't really going to engage in it at all. And at some point, they told me, they said, we have to decide if we're going to stay here and commit our time and our energy and resources if there's no future here, or do we take everything we're doing and go start our own operation? Because ultimately that's what we want. We want to have our own operation. And if it's not through buying out the parents at some point in time, then we need to start now so we have that lifeline to build our operation. But it starts with having those crucial conversations. And sometimes it helps to have a third party help you with that dialogue. Or sometimes, depending on what you're comfortable doing, it's just simply scheduling some time around the kitchen table, or better yet, get away from the kitchen table and go off site and just talk about what you're thinking about, what you think could happen, and what your desires and goals are for you in the operation. It could be tough, but just be ready for it and find someone to help you think through your strategy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think some really good points in there, pushing them to have the conversation and remembering at the end of the day, your parents have a lot of the same goals. They want the operation to succeed and probably continue on into the future, and they want a legacy to pass down and leave behind. So I think remembering some of those common goals can sometimes help start that conversation, pointing some of those out.
Yeah, and it'd be interesting to find out if they would share with you what reservations or challenges they have if they aren't really ready to have that conversation, and hopefully they'll share them with you. But if you can just get everything on the table and do your best to keep the emotions out of the room and just be really mindful of everybody's position in terms of where they're at, I think you can have the conversation. But assuming that it's going to happen and hoping it's going to happen are not good strategies. I'm going to flip gears on you a little bit, and we're going to talk about the mindsets or the roles that we see in business, that we see in ag operations, or we should see more of. And these align with the strategic thinking of your operation. So I'm thinking about strategic roles first and foremost. And you would see these in any corporate setting. And I think that you can take these, whether you give yourself formal titles or not, that's not what I'm suggesting. What I am suggesting is, do you have these types of thinking in your management team, your leadership team? Are you wearing a couple hats, which is fine? But if you notice that some of this thinking isn't there for you as you think about strategy, then that could be a good place to start to say, okay, how do I find somebody to help think about this area? So let's just walk through some of the more typical ones. And I'll start with the chief executive officer, your CEO. Obviously, that's the ultimate decision maker in the operation. That role is accountable for the strategic direction of the business. They're accountable for everything that ultimately happens, and they're the boss, they're the leader. And so you've got to have somebody that can ultimately say yes or no. If you can't get everybody to agree, who ultimately has the decision rights? Excuse me, to say yes or no. Chief financial officer. This person needs to know everything there is to know about the financial condition of the business. How are we doing in terms of debt? How are we doing in terms of cost of production? How are we doing in terms of our operating efficiency ratios? They're probably your liaison to your accountant, but they understand at a high level the financial position of the business, where its strengths are, where its weaknesses could be, and that position helps you think about the what if scenarios as you scenario plan about possible opportunities for your operation. Chief marketing officer, CMO, that person is designed or responsible to make sure that your marketing plan is developed to begin with, that you have a marketing plan, and that it's being executed either by somebody within your company or your team, or if you've outsourced it, they know what the marketing plan is and they have the accountability to make sure that it's being executed. They also have the accountability to touch base with other members of the leadership team to find out, how are we doing in terms of production? How are we doing in terms of last year's crop that's in storage and the condition of that? And do we have good bushels that we can still market? And are we on pace to produce what we think we are. So we know, as a marketing part of the organization, we know what bushels or pounds that we have available to market. COO is your chief operating officer. So somebody has the mindset of all things logistic, all things that are needed to run the business on a daily basis. Do we have the right people? Do we have people? Are vendors lined up, and are they performing like they should be performing? Is our transportation and equipment up to par, and is it ready to roll? So it's the day-to-day organization of the business. CPO, this is one, chief production officer. This isn't one that you commonly see in agriculture. You do see this title a lot in the manufacturing business. I would contend that agriculture is manufacturing. We're producing pounds, we're producing bushels, and we're marketing them. So when you think about strategically, who on your team is thinking about the crop rotation or the livestock? Who's thinking about the genetics that you're putting into the crop or the livestock? Who's thinking about the diversity of, and let's say you're thinking about doing double crop, or you're thinking about doing cover crop, or you're thinking about bringing a whole new line of genetics into the herd. Who thinks about that, and who puts the plan together for the year, maybe a 2 or 3 year plan of production, so that you can start doing your financial forecasting? But who's accountable for the production of the operation? Excuse me. Finally, and this one is becoming a bigger and bigger role, is your chief technology officer. We all know how technology is coming into the ag space. We know about the reliance we have on technology. Who on your strategic leadership team is thinking about the technology stack that you need to have in your operation that allows you to get real-time data, that allows your equipment in the cab to run right, who aligns with, who vets out the vendors that you might use for their reliability and customer service, who knows how your various systems can talk to each other so that you don't create silos of data that you can't use. How does your CPA get the data from your bookkeeping system so they can give you the data that they need to give you, or your agronomist or whatever? So who's thinking about generically the overall technology solutions that you need to deploy into your operation and how that's all going to work? At the end of the day, somebody's got to be accountable for the direction of the company. Somebody's got to know the numbers. Somebody should be accountable for the marketing of what you produce at a level that provides revenue that's in excess of what the demands are and gives you a return to your ownership. Somebody has to make sure the lights are on and all the employees are lined up and the trucks are ready to roll and everything is ready to happen. The branding crew's all lined up. Somebody has to have a vision of what you're going to do in terms of production. And just as importantly, somebody's got to have a line on the technology. All of these roles are critically important. The mindsets are critically important. And so if you're an operation of 1 or 2 people, odds are you're not going to fill all of these hats. You're not going to have an interest in all of them. So the question I would pose to you is, which ones are noticeably absent as you think about your operation? And how do you bring that thinking into your management team, whether it's an outside person acting as an advisor or as someone that you need to bring into the management team as an employee? Either way works, but if you're the CEO of your business and you don't have really a good clue about your technology or what you're going to do there, or you don't have a good feel for your numbers at all, how do you fix that so that you can make strategic decisions more quickly, more informed, and more timely, so that you can take advantage of opportunities that come your way? So when you think about these roles, again, I'll just reemphasize, you don't got to have the titles and you don't have to have 6 or 8 people on your management team, but you got to have access to the mindsets that each one of those roles bring by their discipline. At the end of the day, it's about having the right people in the right roles, doing the right things at the right time. And so that's where all of this fits in. And And to be able to do that, you need at a strategic level your key people communicating consistently and commonly and transparently. So does your CFO understand how the crop is coming along, and are we still projecting from the marketing people that the revenue streams we started for the year are in line? Are we above budget for revenue, or are we below budget? How are we doing from the chief production officer in terms of inputs? And is it costing us more than we thought it was going to, or we have to put more inputs in to maintain the crop this year? Or are we able to do less inputs because of the conditions of the crop or livestock, and that we think the margin's actually going to be a little better? So as your production informs marketing, and marketing informs finance, and finance lets you know if you're running over budget on expenses, that's what it takes to run a business. And as dynamic as the agricultural sector is right now, and as fast as things are moving, it's really important to be able to think about all of this stuff and figure and then determine how you're going to have that in your operation. From my view, the strategy and the strategic decisions are ownership responsibilities. You really can't outsource this work. As I mentioned before, let's say you're a two-person team and you don't have a good feel for technology. You can bring someone to help you figure out what technology you need, but ultimately you're the one that's going to have to make that decision. And so you have to understand it enough that you feel comfortable with the person that's advising you, that they're working in your best interest. So what I would encourage you to do is become really good at delegating jobs that others can do, so you have more time built into your weekly or monthly routine, into the strategic work of the business. Does that make sense? How does that resonate in terms of what I talked about, in terms of the roles and the mindsets?
Yeah, there's one that came through here, not so much about roles, but in general, do you have any advice for how much time someone should be spending working on the business? So kind of in these strategic spaces.
That's a really good question. When you're first starting out, and I would tell you, it probably depends a little bit on the complexity and the velocity of your business. I would set up a routine, though, even if you're just starting out, whether it's once a month or a couple times a month, can you just schedule a couple hours and really sit back and really think on, how is the operation doing? How are we doing as a management team? How are we leading? Are we communicating really well? How are we doing in terms of our forecast and where we think we would be at this point in time of the year? So if you can just build a couple hours a month in at least, but quarterly at least, I would probably sit back and schedule time to really sit back and look at, how are we doing on executing our marketing plan? How are we doing on the overall production? And then what do we see that's different in our assessments of the future? And are we still in line with where we want to go from a vision statement? There's no hard and fast rule. I would tell you that the vast majority of producers spend hardly any time in this area. Again, not ag. I talked to business owners outside of ag, and it's no different, especially family-run businesses. So any time that you can commit and put on your calendar and formalize to just do that work, you're going to be probably ahead of the pack by miles if you would just schedule some time to do this. The more that your business gets complex, and the more wheels that you have spinning and balls in the air, I would say as the ownership team, you're going to have to do more of that and less of the day-to-day, and you're going to have to start delegating more. Let me give you an example of that. I was going to use this example later, but I think it fits in here. I know a family that several years ago now already, I probably measured decades, they decided they wanted to start their own custom feeding business. And one of the brothers was really good and wanted to be kind of the chief, what I would call the chief operating officer, and also said, we'll produce the feed. I'll get the people lined up, and we'll grow the crops. We'll put the corn in the bunker. We'll have all the crops we need, or we'll procure whatever feed we need that we can't produce. The other brother was really, really good at livestock, procuring livestock, getting cattle that would feed well. and he had a deep history in the futures market. He knew how to do the marketing with hedges and puts and all the stuff they do. So that's how they started. And when they started, they were both just day to day in the business. Well, they were successful. They added a lot of clients. They grew their capacity. And over time, it caused them to have to bring on somebody that could formally do the CFO work because they couldn't do it anymore. And then they brought in some foremen that helped keep the farming crew going and the livestock crew going. And they just continued to evolve in where they spent their time. Recently, the brother who was in charge of marketing and procuring cattle, he was still doing a lot of the marketing of placing the hedges and the puts and doing that work. And he figured out he didn't have bandwidth and their customer base is getting big enough. So he found a marketing firm that he could use and trust. And so they're placing the orders every day, but he created an accountability system to where he can see every day a dashboard of the cattle they have on feed, the pens they have, and where those positions are. And then he can talk to that marketing firm daily if he needs to. But he's not doing the trades anymore. He's not executing the trades, although he loves to do it. He was running out of bandwidth. So he had to find stuff that other people could do that he could pay for, whether on staff or hire a contract. So he could do the work that nobody else in the operation could do. Now, that's taken a lot of years for those two to get to that level, but they did that. They continually said, what are we going to stop doing so we can take care of the business of our business, and we'll hire people to do more of the tactical work. You'll have to do that by feel, but you should always be looking at that as an owner of a business. What should I be doing more of, and what should I be delegating?
Yeah, sounds good. There's a couple other, but I think we might save those for the end if that's okay, Bob.
Okay, sure, that's fine. Okay, so let's spend a few minutes just in working in the business. We've been speaking about working on the business a lot, and I think you guys, everyone in here would recognize that when you think about the tactical roles, and I say tactical because this is the stuff of execution. This is what you do every day to make your business run. It's about producing the bushels. It's about getting the pounds off the grass. It's about your people that you have working for you every day. How are they performing? Are they showing up? Are they doing what you expect? You have a good alignment with them. It's executing the marketing plan. It's executing your risk management plan. Do you have the right crop insurance, the right livestock insurance in place to protect your bottom side? And it's about the daily accounting and paying the bills and collecting receivables. And it's about turning on the technology. And when you're at the working chute and you hope that the scale on the chute works and you turn it on and it does, you're like, yay. Or the cab, the technology in the cab, it's working. So it's the tactical roles that you're involved with all the time. And I would tell you, people start their businesses because they love doing elements of this work. They love production. Maybe they love marketing. Very few start an ag operation because they love accounting. It's a necessary evil. I get that. But there's usually some things in here that people really like. What's important here, though, just like I talked about on the strategic roles, is that the people that are in these capacities have open, frequent, and transparent communication so that you know at any given time, how are we doing at executing? Are we producing what we thought we produced? Are we marketing where we thought we would be marketing? Real-time communication around what's working and what's not working. And it's heads down, the task list, things break, stuff happens, you take care of it. It's really easy to stay in this mode 24/7, 365. And you can do that. I would tell you that if you don't climb a tree and look if you're going down the right path still and you're trying to get to where you want to go, how do you know that what you're doing daily is going to make your business progress and mature and evolve? It's about alignment at the tactical level, the right people in the right roles, doing the right things at the right time. So as I said, communication is really important. You can outsource these roles, just like I talked about with the person who outsourced the marketing. Just make sure that you got accountability lined up. So whoever's doing the tactical work is doing it like you want it to be done. So when you put this all together, operating today, whether it's an ag business or any business, but particularly ag business, you got to have a healthy mix of strategic and tactical mindsets. You got to know where you're going. You got to know what the vision for your operation is. And then you align your decisions to help you get there. Commit the time that you need to take to do some strategic work. Don't let all the day-to-day stuff consume you. And make sure that you have the roles present that help you think broader to give your operation the chance to take advantage of opportunities when they come up, and that you know you're going down the path that you want to go down for your business. Finally, I would share, this goes back to David Cole again. He has 4 cornerstones of success. And if you think about what we just talked about today, between the business and the lifestyle of agriculture, there's the planning side, there's the strategy side. That's all your strategic thinking that we talked about. And then the tactical, you have to execute your plans, monitor to see if they're working or not, adjust, keep execute, and then adjust your plans. So with that, I'm going to open it back up for questions. And I hope today that I brought some ideas to your thinking that will help you in the long run. And if anybody wants to visit at any time, please just reach out. But just remember this, you care more about your business than anybody else. So take the time to think about the big picture, and then bring the people in that can come alongside you and help you be successful. Think beyond today, align the day-to-day work with your vision, and commit the time you need to commit to work on your business. So, Rebecca, with that, I would love to open it up for questions, and I'm sure my voice will hold out. I apologize for that towards the end, but let's see what people want to talk about.
Yeah, we had a couple more questions come through. I know we're running a little close on time, but we got some time here at the end. Someone asked, what do you do when more than one person wants the same role in the business? Maybe fighting for that CEO job, maybe fighting for something else.
Maybe 2 CEOs. Yeah, that's a great question. You know, I would probably sit down and find and really articulate. So what is it we expect of this role? What strengths do we need to bring to that table for that role? And who best fits those strengths today? Maybe down the road that changes. Maybe over time that the operation outgrows the capacity of who the CEO is today. For example, use that as an example. And the other person might have the capabilities. I've always thought of what I call situational leadership. I think businesses need the leadership based on where they are in their stage of maturity. An early stage operation might need a different kind of CEO or a different kind of management team than a business that's multi-generational and is really complex. So I would balance it. Probably I would start with the needs of the business first and the needs of where do you want to go. And if you both can't agree on it, maybe you bring some stakeholders in to provide input on what they think the strengths and opportunities could be for each of the people.
Good advice there. Another question that came through. This person says, I'm a one-man show, no employees. Who else can I talk to for this team concept? And what role does my banker play?
So if you're a solo operator, the best thing that you can do is create your board of directors. And those are people that you know and trust that can give you good feedback. They can help you make really good decisions. And so then you could pick those roles that you would sit in there and think about. So if you were to think about, say obviously you're the CEO and you're the lead production person, and you kind of like playing with technology, right? So then who should be on your board that will help you understand the financials? Who should be on your board to help you really think about marketing and what the strategy should be for doing what you need to do? And then and fill those holes with people that you know and trust who will also push you. They won't just be a yes person and tell you what you think you need to hear, but they also have your best interest in mind. Yeah, I think the question, Rebecca, was banker. Yeah, I'd probably be a little careful with a banker on your board, only because they have a fiduciary responsibility. that separates. They've got this obligation to the bank too. They could be an advisor, but when you think about board of directors, what about a CPA who is there? You're going to pay them to work for you, or maybe somebody that you know in your network that is really strong financial. Maybe another producer that you know that's really strong with numbers, and they can help advise you on what to do. Same with marketing. So the smaller that you are in terms of a management team, I would consider who can you put around you and surround yourself with in terms of an informal board of directors but they understand what you need from them. And then that would be part of your strategic time, is maybe once a quarter, you pull that group together, or you spend time and visit with them individually based on what they're bringing to the table for you.
Great. Looks like I think we're out of questions and we're running a little low on time. So Bob, is there any kind of last piece of advice that you want to leave the audience with as we kind of wrap up here?
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for joining us today. Just the fact that you took the time out of your schedules to look at and listen to something that probably is not something you would hear all the time, it speaks loudly for what you're trying to do for your business. So do what you can as you plan your week, as you plan your month. Sit down and block some time on your calendar for this kind of work. If you're a 1 or 2 person team and you want to bring some advisors in, spend some time thinking about who that might be. Block some time out, spend some time thinking strategically, and then go back to the day-to-day tactical work, because it always will be there. 24/7, 365, there's always a to-do list. You got to defend your calendar a little bit so that you can think about where your business is going. So if there's anything that I can get through today, it would be that one thing. Schedule some time to think big.
Great advice to end on. Well, I want to thank you, Bob, for being here today and sharing your insights with us. I want to thank everyone in the audience for their participation and great questions that came through. In fact, we've been getting a lot of requests for grain marketing as a topic. So I have good news for you. We'll be back next month on August 3rd talking about grain marketing. So again, let us know what topics you want to hear from. We hope you'll join us next month on August 3rd. Until then, take good care, and we hope to see you online soon.